The 2023 Rubik's Cube World Championship revealed the single biggest problem in speedcubing history, the Nakajima problem. You see, the first world champion of the modern era was Dan Knights in 2003. Then 2 years later, Jean Pons from France took the title of world champion. But in 2007, speedcubing witnessed something that, in all rational likelihood, will never happen again. For the first and last time ever, the world champion wasn't someone in the top 3 of the world rankings, or the top 5, or even the top 10. Instead, it was a 16-year-old living on the isolated northernmost island of Japan, cut off from the entire rest of the community. In just his second competition ever, Nakajima became the 2007 world champion. But there's a reason you may have just heard that name for the first time. His solving videos got tens of millions of views on YouTube. He was probably the reason your favorite cuber got into speedcubing in the first place, and his impact would surely not be soon forgotten. And then he left. The first and only world champion to ever come out of the Eastern world slowly fell from the top of the rankings. In the World Championship's 43-year history, we have seen 10 world champions from 7 different countries, and only one of them has ever come out of the region that makes up 55% of the world's population. Speedcubing was more prevalent in the East after use time than during, but somehow no one was ever close to rivaling the level he reached. And frankly, the fact that Nakajima ever got to the level of skill he did was an absolute miracle. Without nearly any outside help, he managed to pull off the impossible. This was the first real chance the East had to take back the World Championship since 2007, and in the most intense finals round of all time, they failed. But 18 years later, it's actually the Western world that faces the Nakajima problem. The miracle of Yu's story is that despite his complete isolation, he found a way. But what if I told you every world champion ever has been the result of complete isolation as well? They just didn't know. The reason the West has produced 90% of the world champions for the last 40 years is because we have created the resources needed for infinite improvement. If someone was willing to work hard enough to get there, they had everything they needed to pull it off. And in this 41-year stretch, we pulled it off 9 times and saw solving perfected to a level that was never thought to be possible. We had the blueprint, but even after all of this success, we still didn't actually know how to apply it and find the final key to improvement. There is this concept that is rooted so fundamentally at the base of what we believe in Western society. One of the individual. It's a matter of what you can do for yourself to get to the highest level possible. This is the isolation. Every world champion ever has been the Nakajima in a sense. 2023 was the first year where that has ever been subject to change. So 2 years later, when we now live in a reality where 4 of the top 5 fastest speedcubers in the world represent China, at the very center of the Eastern world, the cultural divide becomes clear. Individual versus community. Upon seeing this, most people thought they knew what was going on here. They just started earlier and were coached to be better. And they were right. This had been the key, the final piece to the puzzle that unlocked limitless potential. But this is an anomaly. And in reality, no child will ever be this good again. The top 2 in the world currently are 11 and 7 years old, so of course in 5 years' time there will just be 2 other kids to replace them, right? Well actually, no. This is it, for the simple reason that right now, we are leaving a renaissance. 1982 to 2023 was a 41-year span of the individual. Nakajima, Felix Zemdeg's, Max Park, all self-taught prodigies who found a way to pull it off. Max won the 2023 World Championship by 1/100th of a second over Yihang Wang, marking the beginning of the Renaissance. Xuanyi and Yihang have turned this 15-month period into the most progressive period in cubing history, and because of that, we're about to jump headfirst into a very weird cultural dynamic. You see, optimizing human performance, lowering solve times was never actually the point, because eventually, whether you accept it or not, there will be a wall. We will arrive at a limit. The question of who reaches that limit first rides on one thing: optimizing the system. This has always been the real key. Everything else was just a distraction. If you optimize the system, you can generate endless talent. But because of the fact that we are leaving such a huge renaissance of optimization and knowledge being given to kids this young, we will probably not see a child as the world #1 again for a very long time. Xuanyi Geng and Timon Kolshinsky are the 2 best users of the most optimized method in the world. Assuming both continue cubing for an endless amount of time, it will only become harder for children to ever be trained to be faster than them. There are really no major advancements past full ZB that can be made. Xuanyi and Timon will only get faster, and even if China continues to train kids with the ZB method, it will inevitably take time to reach their level. Young prodigies typically shine in eras of massive innovation and then fade when it becomes more about mastery. So naturally, as this happens, soon the teenage demographic will be the fastest cubers in the world again. 2023 until around 2028 will be seen as simply a blip, a moment in time where children dominated speedcubing just for a second. If one of these 2 end up winning the 2025 World Championship, it wouldn't be a terrible bet to say that they'll be the youngest to do it for a long while. For better or for worse, we will never get this era back. Now it's up to the West to follow suit and break out of the cycle of constantly reinventing the wheel. because soon enough, isolated world champions will cease to exist, and the Yu Nakajima problem will be even worse for us than it is now. The West does have kids that are incredibly fast at a young age, but we're intentionally missing the fact that when you're given all of the resources in the world, but aren't told exactly what to do with them, you will naturally develop suboptimal tendencies, and at the very highest level, execution, solution, everything just has to be completely flawless in order to compete. It is infinitely harder for someone to take a route like the one Timon did, the individual route, to not only understand the cube at an unparalleled level, but also learn 800 algorithms as it would be for someone who develops that same level of knowledge by it just being given to them at a much younger age. It all used to be individual, but culture as a whole propelled the East into a state of absolute domination through community. And if the West doesn't reciprocate fast, we are in for a long 50 years of this stuff. And competing with that, at a certain level, becomes impossible. A 15-year-old Xuan Yigang in 2032 will be so unbelievably good with the best method in the world that it will be extremely difficult for any child to ever catch up. The fastest way to improve has always been as a group, and it's only taken us 10 world championships and 43 years of competitive cubing to realize this. You'll also be left in the past if you don't press the subscribe button right below the video. Yeah, that one right there. Because you can't allow laziness to defeat you right now. It's just one click of the button away because, you're going to lose to a 6-year-old anyway, so you might as well take the wins where you can get them. Anyway, yeah, besides that, that's about it. See ya.